If you are a young person living in the Western world and you're not really into drugs and alcohol, then you have a problem. Because social life in the West revolves around collective intoxication. And in this video, I want to show you how you can nevertheless find a compatible partner in that kind of society and build a relationship that lasts without having to give up your identity, without having to start drinking and taking drugs if that's just not who you are. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Achil Rudolph. I'm a social confidence coach, and I teach predominantly South Asian men to build the kind of confidence that is needed to walk up to strangers in everyday real life and start good conversations, turn them into dates and into lasting relationships. And I teach people how to do that without having to get drunk. Not even in nightlife, but rather in the public spaces, in broad daylight, with complete sobriety. And this is obviously not very common in the West. I myself had trouble even getting started on my own dating and personal development journey because I come from a very special family where the Indian culture was very dominant, and I was not supposed to go out to parties and get drunk, and I never did that in my early youth. I was not even supposed to go on dates. I was supposed to focus on studies, and I did that, and I'm grateful for that, by the way. It turned me into a straight A student, Ivy League educated, Sida Sada Bacha, who was just going for it in his career. But obviously it left me a bit isolated when it came to social life. And I thought about this recently, and I realized that alcohol is very deeply embedded in the Western social culture. I actually watched a TV talk show the other day. I don't usually watch TV, but I was out without my phone for a day and had nothing else to do, so I switched on the TV and I saw this moderator in a talk show asking a CDU, a conservative politician in Germany, hey, what is German culture? What are our German customs? And this politician, the only thing that he could come up with as an example was sausages. He was like, yeah, I'm from a region where they make bratwurst, and that is one of the German customs. And that made me think, and I looked a bit closer at what makes German social culture. What do people do in Germany when they socialize? And one thing that definitely stands out is alcohol. Everyone knows this. It's part of our culture, whether we want to admit it or not. In the West, in general, most people need alcohol, want alcohol as the main social lubricant. Whenever you see a mass of people together, you can bet 95% that alcohol is involved. And in Berlin, where I'm living, that often turns into more extreme drug abuse and extreme hedonism. And so I felt like that's kind of sad that this is Western culture, this is Western social norms. Young people's lives and communities in some way revolve around drugs, and I got to realize this myself as a young man growing up here because I couldn't really partake in that part of social life. I was just not there at the parties, or I had left before the interesting stuff happened. And so I would hang out with my friends, have a great connection, have good friends in school, but the next day they would talk about stuff that I had no idea what happened because I wasn't there. And sometimes I was actually even there, but I was not in the same state of mind because they were all drugged or high on something. And that made me feel isolated for sure. Certainly, there are people in this culture who are different. Certainly, you can find exceptions. But more than that, there are lots of people who are part of that culture, but actually would be very happy to exit at least this particular aspect of Western culture. They're open to being different. And in this video, I want to focus on that second group because that's, of course, the much larger group. The exceptions will be rather rare. You can find them at specific events. There are sober parties, sober festivals even. In my opinion, they're not really worth it. There are communities where you'll find a high concentration of people who are just sober all their life, but those are very, very few people, obviously. So I want to focus on how to find people that, for lack of better options, are part of that culture, but are very open to leaving that culture and being more sober. And in this video, I will tell you 3 steps that I've identified that helped me and that has helped my clients so far in finding those kind of people and actually leading them. As always, this video is going to be a rather deep mindset, psychological discussion. I'm not going to be on the surface here. Those of you who know me, I don't talk about what you should say or where you should go. I'll leave that for other people. Here it's about what you can think and how you can clean up your inner mindset in order to communicate very clearly to the world and achieve the goals that you have for your social life. So let's dig into the first step of solving this very complex problem, how to find people who are not that much into drinking and taking drugs that you can actually build a relationship with in the West. And that is understanding. Understanding yourself and also understanding the world in that aspect where you make a very clear model of why people even take drugs, why they need to get drunk so much. If you want to be different from what everyone else is doing, well, you need to understand why they're doing it and why you're different. Because otherwise you will never be able to uphold that very unusual stance. You will succumb to the pressure. We are herd animals ultimately, and it's hard for us to just do something that no one else does or not do something that everyone else does. And so we need to build a very strong frame. You can't say, yeah, I don't drink. Someone asks you why. You say, that's my culture. My parents don't want me to drink. No one's gonna even take you seriously if you don't have a real strong conviction and reason and clear mental framework for why you're not drinking. So why don't you drink? Why don't you like drugs? Well, there are many reasons, and obviously you'll have to find your own, but I'm going to show you a couple of reasons that I have very clearly on top of my mind. And the first one is that it's just not helping me. I mean, I have a lot of goals in life and I haven't really reached them yet. And I know that alcohol and drugs are not helping me. I mean, it helps with some things, but it never really helped me get closer to my goals so far. And when I did everything else that I could and I still didn't reach my goals, I said, well, then I have to sacrifice some things. And the first thing that I sacrificed was drugs and alcohol. I tried it for a while, but I said, well, that's definitely not helping and it's certainly taking energy and time away. So let me just drop that. And I feel like if you have ambitious goals, then you can't be drinking a lot. Like, if you have ambitious goals and you're not reaching them, how can you be getting high all the time? It basically means that you're not serious about those goals. Because in almost every case, that activity of getting drunk and high is taking a lot of energy away that you could be using to get closer to those goals. And I wonder how you can live a life where you have a goal and you're not reaching it and you're getting drunk every weekend. Wouldn't you wonder, maybe that's exactly what was missing. If you just had that extra time that you're lying around wasted, hungover, maybe then you would have reached your goal. I could not live with that kind of potential regret. Some people have ambitious goals and they don't reach them, and it's so painful for them that they have to numb their pain with getting drunk. It's not a good idea because that pain is necessary to motivate you to take action. Others have no ambitious goals. They say, I don't need to even work hard. I don't need to get up on Sunday. Well, then they're probably drinking and getting high to numb the pain from having a purposeless life. So the second reason for me that drinking doesn't make sense and taking a lot of drugs doesn't make sense is that it gives a certain fake confidence. And I think fake confidence is the biggest enemy of real confidence. Most people think they don't even have to work on their real confidence. They don't have to train their social skills because they say, all I have to do is drink 2 beers and maybe pop some pill and then I have social skills. Well, yeah, that works, but it's not very sustainable and you get dependent on those substances. You get those little spikes where you jump up and suddenly you're the most social person in the universe, and then the next morning you can't even talk to the same person that you met last night anymore. This happened to me. Creates kind of split personality where you know that after taking a certain substance you're a completely different person, and it's almost schizophrenic to live like that. It's something I don't want to do, and I'd rather just increase the baseline and slowly become more and more confident in a lasting way so that I don't need to have any stimulant that pushes me up and creates those spikes, but rather I increase the baseline. And that also is the third reason why I don't like drugs and alcohol. It's because I felt there are many better ways to let go, to become social, and to relax. And one thing that drugs certainly did to me when I tried them for a while, they did help me to really let go and get into some creative flow, start writing, making art. I discovered a bit of my creative side thanks to those substances. But the more I self-observed myself in that time, the more I realized that I wasn't really having better ideas when I was high. It was just that I was more euphoric and I was more appreciative of the ideas that I had. I have the same ideas all the time, but usually I don't allow myself to look closely and to appreciate those ideas and to channelize those ideas into expression. So when I realized that, I started just working on my ability to be creative in the sober state, to look very closely at my thoughts and to appreciate those thoughts and to say, yeah, those are amazing thoughts. And the quality of those thoughts that I had then and that I expressed then was higher than the quality of the thoughts that I had under the influence of certain substances. Obviously, you know this if you have tried that, you might have written something under the influence of some substance and it sounded amazing. It sounded like Nobel Prize winning literature in the moment, but the next morning you look at it and it's complete rubbish. It doesn't even make any sense. So those are 3 reasons that I remind myself when I want to just make sure I understand why I am not into drugs and alcohol. And it helps me strengthen that frame. And if I think through these reasons, I become very certain in my conviction. And that certainly helps in attracting people who are actually like-minded or open to be in a similar flow. But then there is a second step to actually finding those people, and that's embracing it towards the outside, towards the social environment. And it's a great thing to embrace because it is a unique thing. It's an edgy thing. It's something that most people will not really understand. Most people will not agree with what I just said about alcohol and drugs. And that's awesome because that means I'm going to polarize here and attract the few people who actually do agree and who are grateful for someone articulating a unpopular, rare point of view. So these kinds of things are very important in socializing because they make you unique. They help you find the few people that are like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. So you can go into a social setting in the West into a bar or even a club and be like, yeah, I don't drink, by the way. You can go to the bar and order a glass of water demonstratively and just say, yeah, I like my water. Cheers to everyone. And yes, that'll get some attention because people will be like, what's wrong with you? Why are you not drinking? And then when you have that understanding about why you're not drinking and you understand why most other people drink, some people are going to be intrigued. Some people will say, yeah, that's stupid, you're not drinking. Some people will say, that's cheating, you're not supposed to be here without getting drunk. Everyone is getting drunk, so you have to get drunk as well. They will be offended sometimes if you're not destroying your body to get social, because in their world, that's the deal. If you want to be social, you have to destroy your body. And there's someone who wants to be social without destroying their body. That's not fair. But you can stand out and you can say, no, I'm offering something else here. And it filters out the wrong people, because those people who get upset at you not drinking, well, you probably don't want to be friends with them. And if someone brings that up very early on in the conversation, that they say that drinking is very important to them and they love their wine and they want to get drunk, well, then you just turn to the next person. And if that topic doesn't come up, it's actually a good idea to bring it up, to ask those questions early on in the conversation, to bring those topics up early on, proactively, and say, yeah, I don't drink. I've never taken drugs. I've never eaten meat. I have almost never eaten meat. In fact, there was one friend who once tricked me into eating meat. He told me that it was tomato, was some salami pieces on a pizza. Damien, if you're watching this, I'll never forget. But yeah, I've never really eaten meat. I've never tasted meat. If I say that to someone, they're like, what? And if they say, I love meat, then I know that I shouldn't continue that conversation. If they say, what? You don't eat meat at all? Wow, I've always wanted to go vegetarian, but I haven't managed. Well, then that's the person that I want to talk to. And then let's go now to the third step, which I already indicated here. After understanding exactly why you are different and embracing that fact, and not just saying, yeah, it's something I have to live with, but rather showing that, demonstrating that, putting it out first. Then what you can do is the people who are actually vibing with that kind of edginess and they click with you and they say, yeah, this is cool, this is unique, and I'm also a bit like that, you can actually lead them. That's the third step here, leading. Because there are so incredibly many people, I would say most people, when you ask them deep down, don't really want to have to get drunk and take drugs to be social. They drink and take drugs mostly because that's what the society has in store. This is the solution. This is the technology that the Western society uses for being yourself, for being loose, for being spontaneous, for being fun socially. And people don't really like the compromise, as I said earlier, that you have to destroy your health in order to be social, but they think that's the only compromise there is. And they don't really care about the substance itself. They don't care that much about the taste, the texture of an ecstasy pill. No one cares about that. People hate the taste of an ecstasy powder. What they care about is the feeling. They care about the feeling of being loose. And if you can show them a way to get that feeling of freedom, creative flow, spontaneity, social fun, without having to get drunk, well, then you have something very valuable for most people out there. People will be impressed if you can show them how that works. And it's not that difficult as well. For me, it's just about talking. Right now, I feel a bit of that flow. Right now, I am talking a little bit like I used to talk 5-10 years ago when I was still drinking. And I would only be able to talk like this with a bit of passion, with a little bit of flow, with free, spontaneous associations when I was drunk. But I've worked on that, and now I can do it after a little bit of warm-up. And now if I'm talking like this to someone in a bar, they actually get that vibe and they say, wow, what did you take? What drug are you on? I get that question a lot. Sometimes people come to me and say, do you sell something of that? Can you give me the same stuff you have? Most people just don't know that this is a path you can take. They don't know that just talking and expressing yourself freely puts you into a similar state like getting drunk. And yeah, it is a bit more work. It takes a bit more time. And most people are just lazy. They're lazy to learn how that works. They're lazy to spend the time that's necessary. They're lazy to go and find those other kinds of experiences that get you high, like really good music, a really good nature trip. The decision to just leave your phone at home and walk in nature for a while. Most people just don't do that ever anymore. And so in conclusion, if you are a person who doesn't drink in a culture that heavily relies on drugs and alcohol to bring people together and socialize and have fun together, it really doesn't mean that you have to give up on socializing, you have to go back to your home country or get a partner from there. Every culture has defects, and it turns out that Western culture has a defect here where it certainly depends too much on drugs and alcohol. And some people don't see it that way. They will never want to change, but most people here are actually aware of this, at least on a deeper layer. And if you show them a better alternative, then they'll be happy to follow you, because you can actually show them that it's clearly better for you and also clearly better for them to not have to get wasted all the time to be social. And humans are extremely diverse, so you will find a lot of people in a certain society who also do not really agree with this aspect of their culture. 3 steps, as I said. First, you need to understand exactly what your opinion is on this and why you are different. And then second, you want to embrace that difference. Instead of hiding it, you show it very openly and you use it to polarize and to attract people who are open to your worldview. And then third, you lead them on that new path. Obviously, you can't lead someone by force. You have to be very respectful of their individual choices, and you have to make sure you're tolerant of their worldviews. And in many other areas, maybe they will lead you on a different kind of path to learn something that you don't know. And you can obviously only expect someone to follow if you are a really great role model yourself. So much of that leading will be just applying the lessons that I talked about here in this video to your own life, and then shining by example and showing people that you can have a lot of fun without alcohol and drugs and socialize. If you need more support with finding a partner in a society where the culture is not perfectly compatible with yours, then I'll be happy to find out if I can actually help you more. You can check out a link in the description where you can find out more about how I help people with this situation. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'm excited to hear from you, see your comments, leave a like and subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed this video. With that, Samgachadvam, Namaskar.